Hello and welcome to Football Daily. Today we're bringing you the dumbest transfers of the last decade. These aren't good players who got injured or youngsters who never quite lived up to expectations, but moves which were stupid from the start. We're going to start in West London. 10. Dani Drinkwater to Chelsea. Successful clubs often generate imitators like Guardiola's Barcelona or Klopp's Dortmund, but Chelsea took things maybe too literally in 2017 when they paid £30 million to reunite Dani Drinkwater with N'Golo Kante, bringing together the midfield which had once won the title with Leicester City a year earlier. At the time, Drinkwater was no joke, having won 3 England caps and continued to start for the Foxes without Kante at his side. But he was already 27 and Leicester were in freefall, tumbling from 1st to 12th after sacking Ranieri, and Drinkwater was in a small decline too. He dribbled less, won possession less and completed fewer long balls in 16-17 than he did in the entirety of Leicester's title-winning campaign, and his creativity numbers disappeared entirely, dropping from close to 1.5 key passes a game to just 0.5. Nonetheless, Chelsea turned to him after missing out on Ross Barkley, who they would eventually sign in January, but Antonio Conte never seemed sold on the player, giving him just 12 league appearances. Sarri was even more sceptical, with Drinkwater's only appearance of the 18-19 season coming in the Community Shield, and loans to Burnley and Aston Villa this year have failed to reignite his form either, seeing him spend just 322 minutes on the field to date. With a salary of £100,000 a week and 2 years left on his Blues contract, Chelsea will be saddled with Drinkwater for a while yet. 9. Lemar to Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid's signing of Lemar in 2018 may not have ruined the club like some transfers on this list, but it was far from smart. The Frenchman was 22 at the time, and though he had won the title and reached the Champions League semis with Monaco 2 years earlier, his form was already on the wane. Having contributed to 25 league goals in 37 starts that season, he'd produced just 10 in 30 the year after, but Atleti still paid full price, an insane £63 million, the 16th highest fee of all time at that point. The only people who ended up happy were Arsenal fans, who had seen their team's £90 million bid for the youngster knocked back just a year before. Lemar's output declined for the second year running, this time to 7 goal involvements in 27 starts, whilst his combined shots and chances created per game fell from 4.5 in France to 3.2 in his first year in Spain, before tumbling even further to just 1.5 in 1920. That's barely more than Simeone gets out of Brazilian centre-back Felipe. According to Transfermarkt, Lemar's value now sits at just £21 million, a third of the amount Atleti paid, and if they can't sell him or rehabilitate him, Atleti will be stuck paying him over £100,000 a week until 2023. 8. Danilo to Real Madrid. What do you do when you have arguably the best right back in the world playing for your club? Well, if you're Real Madrid, you go and make Danilo the 4th most expensive fullback in history. Real paid Porto £28 million for the Brazilian back in 2015, despite a 23-year-old Dani Carvajal locking down the right flank, having made over 40 appearances for a second consecutive season at the Bernabeu and earning the club a 10th Champions League title just 12 months earlier. Injuries to Carvajal and pressure from club president Florentino Perez saw Rafa Benitez hand Danilo over 2,000 minutes in his debut campaign, but from the start, he was a weak link. Across the whole campaign, Real Madrid suffered 5 losses in all competitions, and Danilo played every minute in each one of those defeats, whilst Carvajal started just 1 match which ended in a loss. The next year under Zidane, Danilo made just 17 league appearances, with Nacho being preferred, and Real ended up selling him on loan to Man City for less than they paid. That didn't work out either, but Danilo, he's now at Juventus, looking to add to the 3 titles and 2 Champions Leagues he won as a bench warmer in Madrid and Manchester. Some people apparently just can't fail. 7. Gonzalo Higuain to Juventus. Now, I'm not sure who wrote this script, but I can't entirely agree with them on Gonzalo Higuain to Juventus. Nevertheless, I am going to read what is in front of me. We can't claim that Gonzalo Higuain has been bad at Juventus. In fact, he's been a lot better than you probably think. At the time of writing, the Argentinian has scored 45 and assisted 13 in 80 league starts for the Bianconeri, giving him a goal contribution every 125 minutes for the club since his £75 million signing in 2016. Then the 4th costliest transfer in history, setting records for fees paid by an Italian Italian club and for a South American player. Spending that money on a 28-year-old, it was a bit of a risk. Juve had spent that money to win the Champions League, and while they reached the final with Higuain in 2017, they had done so without him as well in 2015. And Higuain's loss didn't even significantly weaken their competition in Serie A. Juve won the league by 4 points in both 16-17 and 17-18, having won it by 9 points and 17 points the seasons before his arrival. As a consequence, the old lady sent him out on loan to Milan in 18-19, and 12 months on shelled out a new record fee for Cristiano Ronaldo, hoping he could succeed where his former Real Madrid teammate had failed. Now 32, Higuain's age and £240,000 a week pay packet have made him almost impossible to shift, and by the time his contract expires in Turin in 2021, he will have cost the club an incredible £125 million and bought them no trophies they wouldn't have won anyway. 6. Dani Osvaldo to Southampton. Southampton's search for striker pre-Danny Ings had lasted almost 10 years. Since promotion in 2012, the club has finished with under 50 league goals in 4 out of 7 full seasons, and Danny Ings this year has ended a streak of 3 successive campaigns in which the club's top goalscorer in the Prem failed to reach double figures. But among their many transfer failures, Gabbiadini, Carrillo, Buffal, arguably the worst, was Dani Osvaldo. The Italian arrived in 2013 for just under £14 million, still the 14th most expensive fee in Saints history, with a pretty bad reputation, having served as suspension the previous year for punching teammate Eric Lemar, and he wasted no time improving his stupidity on the south coast. Just 5 months and 3 goals after his arrival, he was sidelined by coach Maurizio Pochettino after headbutting Jose Fonte in training, and Southampton loaned him out for the next 3 seasons to Juve, to Inter, and finally to Boca Juniors, with Osvaldo having to accept pay cuts to make the moves work, and Southampton not even getting loan fees. Eventually, the club decided to write off the cost of the deal and cancelled Dani Osvaldo's contract in 2016. He went on to play for Porto and Boca again before his deal was cancelled a second time when he was caught smoking in the club showers. He retired at the age of 30 to focus on his music career. 5. Islam Slimani to Leicester City. He may have torn up Ligue 1 in 1920 with Monaco with 16 goal involvements and 14 starts, but Islam Slimani remains a Leicester City player with a contract at the King Power which doesn't expire until next summer. And of the 4 years since he joined the Foxes in 2016, Slimani has spent 2.5 years out on loan, making 37 appearances for Newcastle, Fenerbahce and Monaco compared to just 35 for Leicester City. That's a pretty poor return on the £30 million the club shelled out for him following their 15-16 title win, but in truth, it always looked like a pretty bad fit. Leicester's success has been built around a hypermobile, tenacious frontman in Jamie Vardy, and a high-pressing link forward in Shinji Okazaki, so the lumbering 6'2" Slimani never really fitted in, an aerial threat at a club which ranked 12th in the league for crosses attempted per game. While the team did find a new ball winner replacing Kante with Ndidi, they could have used the Slimani money to try and find heirs to Vardy and Mahrez, instead of handing a 5-year, £80,000 a week contract to a 28-year-old. 4. Henrikh Mkhitaryan to Arsenal. Criticism of the Mkhitaryan-Alexis Sanchez swap deal of 2018 usually focused on the Chilean's struggles at United, thanks to his wage of nearly £500,000 a week at Old Trafford, but Arsenal arguably got just as bad of a deal. Sanchez had produced 10 league goals and assists for the Gunners over the first half of the 17-18 campaign, as well as finishing the club's top scorer in 2 of the previous 3 seasons, whilst Mickey was coming off the back of a 2-year spell with just 11 goal involvements and wanted to play in the same position as Arsenal's top earner Mesut Ozil. As a consequence, in the 2.5 years since the move, he's played just 272 minutes more for the Gunners than he played for Man United. And that's not the worst of it either. Arsene Wenger had turned down a £60 million offer from Man City in the summer, assuming Sanchez would sign a new contract. And when it was clear the player wanted to leave, the coach panicked, fearful of losing Alexis for nothing. But that would have been better than committing Arsenal to paying Mkhitaryan around £200,000 a week for 3.5 years, taking the Dortmund man up to his 32nd birthday. All in, that contract will cost the North London side £36 million. And more importantly, it set the pattern for the acquisition of David Luiz and Socrates. Short-term moves which were intended to help the club scrape back into the Champions League. If they had simply let Alexis leave for nothing, the Gunners would have had the cash to start their rebuild 2 years earlier. 3. Alvaro Negredo to Valencia. When Singaporean billionaire Peter Lim bought Valencia in 2014, it looked like Los Che had the means to recapture their glory days of the early 2000s, when they won 2 titles and reached successive Champions League finals. However, with their new wealth, saw an influx of young stars like Santi Mina, João Cancelo and Rodrigo de Paul. It also saw overpriced prestige signings like the £25 million purchase of Alvaro Negredo. The club loaned the Spanish striker in from Man City with an obligation to buy after a year, meaning that when he netted just 5 goals in 14-15, they still had to fork out what remains the 4th highest fee in their history for a player turning 30, and with a patchy injury record. To make matters worse, Negredo was left out of the squad following public criticism of the then boss Nuno Espirito Santo, and only returned to the lineup following the appointment of Gary Neville, the third of 4 managers in a single campaign which saw Valencia lose 16 league matches and finish 12th. Negredo spent the next year on loan at Middlesbrough, suffering a relegation before he was sold to Besiktas for just £2 million, a pretty big loss on a fee paid just 24 months earlier. 2. Arda Turan to Barcelona. Be honest, you've forgotten that Arda Turan is still technically a Barcelona player. The Turk cost Barcelona £31 million in 2015 when he was already 28, and in the subsequent 5 years has played almost as much for Istanbul Basaksehir as he has for the Blaugrana, racking up 42 appearances in Turkey on loan, with just 55 for his parent club in Catalonia. Like most attackers, Turan's output with Barcelona is not too bad. In those 55 games, he's been involved in 25 goals, winning 4 trophies, including a second Spanish title. But he was never going to be preferred to Neymar, Suarez or Messi, and his age meant he was not a long-term heir to any of them either. As a consequence, Barca farmed him out on a 2.5-year long loan back to his homeland in 2018, thinking this would get his £85,000 a year wage off the books, only to see his deal cut short at the beginning of 2020 after Turan was given a 32-month suspended sentence by a Turkish court following a fight with musician Berkay Sahin, which ended with the footballer firing a gun in a hospital. Fortunately for Quique Setien, Turan's contract expires this summer, but a 33 with a bad reputation and a market value of under 600k, it's hard to see where the player goes from here. Number 1. Ricky Alvares to Sunderland. The gold standard in wasting money, Ricky Alvares was an exciting player when he joined Sunderland from Inter Milan in 2015. Then 26, the Argentinian had scored and assisted 12 league goals the year before, taking 2 shots and creating 2 chances, as well as completing 3 dribbles a game. And Sunderland paid a £1 million loan fee for the wide man, with an obligation to make the move permanent at the end of the year for just £10 million if they avoided relegation, and Alvarez's dodgy left knee remained intact. Well, the Black Cats finished 3 points above the drop, but Alvarez had made just 5 starts after his right knee had fallen apart, so the club tried to get out of the purchase, claiming his right leg had somehow been affected by his left knee issues. This unsurprisingly didn't work, and the Court of Arbitration for Sport ordered Sunderland to pay up. Even more embarrassingly, the club have failed to get Alvarez's signature on his new contract, reasoning this would help with their lawsuit, but instead meaning he was free to sign for Sampdoria, leaving Sunderland with a £10 million bill and no player. In a final humiliation, Alvarez himself sued Sunderland for a loss of earnings, and the Mackems tried to blame their club doctor for the whole affair, during which they suffered consecutive relegations. Half a decade later, and now in League One, Sunderland's legal woes, they still rumble on. So that was our list of the 10 dumbest transfers of the decade, but are there any we've missed out? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later.